following political paid advertisements do not reflect the political opinions of the program or its associates. Any political campaign or candidate who wishes to purchase advertising can do so. Advertising is open to all on behalf of Gloves Off.
Back at you, Gloves Off, and Professor Buitrón, and today we're sitting here with the Director of Elections Administration of Webb County, Mr. Salvador Tellez. How we doing?
Good morning. How you doing today?
Good, good. How about yourself?
Trying to enjoy the end of early voting, and hopefully on Tuesday we'll be able to finish off this primary season.
Absolutely, and then we wait till November after that.
For the general elections.
General elections,
Yeah.
and but an overall essence of what happens with what happened in this early vote. How did you see it?
Well, this early vote, fortunately, it was average. Between both parties, there was a total of 20,253 voters that came out. In comparison to the 2018 primary, they only had 18,738, and in comparison to the 2016 early voting, there are only 19,276. So we were slightly up by 1,000 votes, give and take a few. So from the 2016 and from the 2018, we were almost 1,500 votes up. So we did okay, although it's a low turnout for a primary,
Sure.
Especially when you consider that it's a presidential primary. And everybody should be interested in that. But I guess, like I've always said, if the candidates are not attractive to the voter, nobody's going to come out and vote. And I think that a lot of people are waiting to see who gets picked as a nominee for them to be able to come out in November.
Absolutely, and things have changed with that, which I'll ask those questions there. But let's ask here. What grew more? Did more Democrats grow more in Webb County or more Republicans, or how did it go?
Well, interestingly enough, we had, I think the Republican base in Webb County has grown.
Okay.
We had 1,615 Republicans come out in this primary 2020. In 2018, only 807, which was double. And in 2016, 1,600 came out, which was 15 more votes less than what we had this election. So I think there's a Republican base, but like everybody in the primary, they cross over and they vote in the Democratic primary because they're more interested in the local races. And one thing I need to remind certain people, because we had this issue come up with certain new voters.
Sure.
A person would come in and ask for a Republican ballot, and then they would be complaining that the candidates that they wanted to vote for were not on the ballot, which indicates to me there was more interest in the local races than the presidential race, and therefore people should have been crossing over to vote in the Democratic primary. And as I was emphasizing to a number of the less experienced voters, just because you cross over and vote on the Democratic ticket doesn't commit you to vote Democrat in November. You can vote whatever party you want in November, and more importantly, to remind people, this coming November, we will not have the straight party vote anymore. You're gonna have to vote individually for each candidate that you want to win in a particular race.
And that was a question I was coming to. How do you see everybody accepting that? Do you think everybody's gonna accept it a little bit better, or what do you see the pros and cons of that?
As far as the no party, straight party ticket,
Yes.
I think it's gonna take some people a time of adjustment. I think what we're going to see is perhaps undervoting, or probably certain ballots not voted properly. Although it's not gonna have a party checkoff box, so it's gonna be an indication to people that they have to take the time and read every ballot, every race that's on the ballot.
Absolutely. So in a good way, it hides people's vote, as per se, those that are afraid of certain nefarious actions, like they said, oh, you voted Republican, you were supposed to vote Democrat. So now here it's just gonna be one. Is it later, here's the next question. Later on, are they going to use the same format for the primary, so you just get one ticket with everybody's name, whoever's running, or no?
Well, that has not been discussed with us as elections administrators. I don't see that coming down pretty soon, although that is an observation that some voters made. Why can't we just get both the Republican and the Democrat ballots on one ballot? And unfortunately, in the state of Texas, each one is a separate party. Each one administers their portion of the primary, and I don't foresee that coming down the pike as far as combining a voter being able to get both ballots when he shows up at a polling place.
Right, because like, number one, I've seen it, and there's other people that always say, I want everything all together and I can vote for whoever I want. But would it change? No, maybe no.
No, I don't think it's going to change. The dilemma we have to remind people, there are some people, let's say in the state of Texas, where like Webb, it's a strong Democratic stronghold, and you go to vote in the Democratic primary for the local races, and you already know who the winner is going to be in November because there's no Republican opponent. If we put everything together on one ballot, we're turning the primary into the general election, and you can probably predict if you have both Republicans and Democrats, and you can vote for whoever you want, you may get an indication of who's going to be your office holder without having a general election.
Yeah, that can happen. That will happen. That's a great observation. But let's changing. How are the candidates now that you're seeing? How are the candidates? Are they more fulfilling all their duties with financial reports, or you have some that are more lax than others? So how do you see that?
That has been a problem that since I came into the Elections Administration Office in 2018 that we've been trying to resolve. There are a lot of candidates, even incumbents, who are in office who have failed to file their finalized reports for campaigning. We did it last year, early part during where we would have had the primary races in 2019.
Sure.
I used that period to send out letters to all the candidates, reminding them that what reports they were missing. Some of them followed up on it and finalized their reports. Others we have not heard from. Recently, the local newspaper asked me for copies of the reports of who has filed and not. I don't know if they plan to do a report soon or not, but there's still quite a few people who are in office who have not filed their reports.
Right. And well, I guess that kills the next question I was going to ask, but I'll change it out in a little. I'll ask a different question. In other words,
Okay.
And that would be candidates that file. Okay. How come they're doing all the time? Is that mandatory? If they don't, do they get penalized or do they get a fine? How does that work?
The Ethics Commission of the state of Texas is supposed to police that aspect of it. If you don't file a report, you are supposed to be fined or penalized by the Ethics Commission. Case in point, not to point anything out, there is a candidate running right now for a primary, in the primary, who didn't designate a treasurer and hasn't filed any financial reports. However, the state Democratic Party allowed us to put him on the ballot. I'm not saying maybe that should be a requirement that you do all your financial statements and designate a treasurer before you get on the ballot, but obviously the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, sort of, because that gentleman is on the ballot.
And he shouldn't be.
Well, he didn't designate a treasurer, and to formally launch a campaign, you're supposed to designate a treasurer if you're gonna be receiving monies. Now, he hasn't filed any financial reports, so I have to conclude that he's not receiving money. Maybe he's self-financing, I don't know, but we don't know that.
Absolutely. Now, the other question, coming back with the elections, here in Laredo we have several elections. We have the city election, then you have some other, the colleges and so on and so forth. When are they gonna be lumped up together? Because some people say, no, I don't wanna go vote, because guess what? Every so often I have to vote again and again, and for the different entities.
All those elections, unfortunately, are gonna be lumped together in the general election in November.
Sure.
We're gonna be having a meeting sometime probably towards the end of April, early part of May, so I can put all the sub-governmental subdivisions in line as to what positions you're gonna have available, get everybody on board as far as deadlines to do certain things. And it's gonna be a lengthy ballot, and of course, it's gonna be a presidential election year, so the turnout I anticipate will be slightly higher in November.
By how much, más o menos, more or less?
Well, the last time we had a presidential election, I believe, I wasn't in office yet, but I think in 2016, they had like 58 or 60,000 voters. I think we're gonna get more than that.
Really?
Yeah. Our voter registration levels are getting higher. Demographically, the people that are coming out to vote are, like I mentioned the last time I was here with you, I think the demographic shows that the voter that's coming out to vote is under the age of 45. There's more of that generation or lower coming out to vote. The baby boomers, we're dying off. We're a dying breed. We still come out to vote, 17-20% of the vote, but we're not the majority of the vote.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
And right now, out of that branch that you sit in, do you have a lot more youngsters voting? People, when I say youngsters, will be the ones in the college age.
Yes.
Between 18 to 25.
Has
that grown?
Based on my observations and what the turnout is, we're getting quite a large number of that age group to come out to vote. I think the O'Rourke campaign pushed them, motivated them to come out, get involved, and some of them are still involved in participating.
And here's another question. I have a lot of friends and associates, not only from this country, from other countries, and they say, over here it's mandatory. When is it going to be mandatory for the United States you have to vote? In some countries, you get penalized if you don't vote.
Yeah, you get put in jail.
Yeah, in some countries, you have to pay taxes, and all of a sudden here's a nice little fine because you didn't vote last time.
As far as making voting mandatory in the United States, I don't see that on the horizon. I have not heard in probably 10 years of anybody ever proposing that. At the same token, we don't do a lot of things they do in other countries, like mandatory conscription, mandatory, and they call it mandatory social service. Serve 2 years in the military after you graduate from college or high school. And in some places you have to go to serve militarily in order to get your professional licenses. So I don't see any of that happening in the United States.
Anytime soon.
Anytime soon. Not within my generation. My lifespan is spanned, unfortunately.
And, but we're been given gifts of a little bit more freedom and more lax here in the United States. But I think things are going to change. How about voter ID?
Well, the voter ID is already in place. Whether we're gonna go to a national voter ID, if I had to project and speculate, I would say we'll probably be seeing something of that nature in about 10 years.
Really?
Everybody right now, most states you have to have proper identification to vote. We have the what's it called, the Rio license, where you gotta have a certain license with a certain star on it so you can get on the planes. I think eventually that's gonna transfer into a national voter identification card, where you're gonna be able to use that to board a plane and do all your banking, all your other stuff.
And it's going that way, because in fact, I just got mine, and it has that little star on the side, and that's it. And that's basically for what it's for, I think.
Now, what we need to be concerned about, and again, maybe as a baby boomer, I'm a product of the conspiracies of the 60s, and that is, well, 1984 is here already. They can track us, they can do a lot of things, especially with our cell phones. And with the voter ID, if we go to a national voter ID or a national identification card, we're moving towards, and this is one thing we need to be concerned about, is we're moving towards a more totalitarian form of government, where they're gonna be able to know what you do, when you do it, and who you do it with.
No, you're absolutely correct. And a lot of things have changed, and some of these conspiracy theories that you look back and all of a sudden they're popping up in your face, and you're like, wait a minute, we heard that 10, 15 years ago,
Yes.
now it's right here, where did it come from? But, the good one, here's one. There's a book written in 1981. It talks about a virus called the Wuhan 4000, and apparently it was going to be put out in 2020. But that's a book.
Well, unfortunately, literature, whether it's fiction or
not.
fact or not, sometimes
It's
is
accurate.
better than It's better than fiction. It becomes reality.
Absolutely. So, whatever, Jules Verne, everything he wrote about, except the time machine is already here.
Yeah, and who knows? We might have a time machine, except it's not known to the public yet.
Absolutely. There was some stuff out there. But anything you would like to tell folks out there but to vote?
Well, Tuesday, the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night. I encourage everybody to come out and vote. Leave the TV remote at home. Just come out. The last elections, since I've been administrator, I've been urging grandparents and parents, bring your children to vote with you. Let them get exposed to you doing a civic duty, and maybe it'll transcend down to them that they will be more participant. Bring a child to vote on Tuesday. Bring yourself to vote.
Absolutely. Folks, the last day to vote's on Tuesday, March 3rd, and I want to thank Mr. Tellez for doing an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we'll continue our talk. But till next time, peace.
The following political paid advertisements do not reflect the political opinions of the program or its associates. Any political campaign or candidate who wishes to purchase advertising can do so. Advertising is open to all on behalf of Gloves Off.